Welcome to Convocation this week, Snow College's Arts and Lecture Series. We're happy today to be able to welcome Mary Kent, who is our presenter. Before I introduce Mary, once again, I'd just like to remind everybody who is here, all of the students, please make sure that you have your ID scanned, or at least you give your name to one of the TAs taking attendance so that you can be counted today. After today, or after the lecture today, will you please make sure that your attendance was counted if in fact you had your card scanned, all right? Let me go ahead and present our guest today. Mary Kent currently serves as a full-time intelligence analyst working with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. She has received intelligence analysis training from multiple agencies to include the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Drug Enforcement Administration, and the United States Secret Service. Her part-time career is teaching at Utah Valley University as an adjunct professor of criminal justice and national security studies. Before her career as an analyst and professor, Professor Kent served in the United States Army for 7 years as an Aviation Operations Specialist. Her time in service placed her in the Middle East during the 9/11 attacks of 2001. She also worked as a victims advocate for a local Utah police agency where she led the internship program and provided training and case interviews for the Provo Police Citizens Academy, Fox 13 News, ABC 4 News, the Center for Women and Children in Crisis, and the University of Toledo's International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference. She obtained a master's degree in National Security and Terrorism Studies with honors from the American Military University and is currently obtaining her PhD in Criminology from the University of Stirling, Scotland. Please join me in welcoming Mary Kent.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. That introduction makes me sound a lot cooler than I actually am. But I'm not very good at, I guess, making myself sound wonderful, so I actually had a friend of mine write that for me. As introduced, I started my career towards this field of study through the military. Moved into working for the Provo Police Department, which is where I got my first experiences working with victims of human trafficking. If you've never heard of a victims advocate before, police officers basically deal with the criminals, and victims advocates, we handle the victims of those crimes. We help them get resources, find a place to stay, food to eat, just depending on the situation. And that's where I started to learn more about sex trafficking and the nature of the victims that are drawn into that type of, I'll say, career. After the Provo Police Department, I started working as an intelligence analyst. Now, on the announcement, it says I'm an open source intelligence analyst. Who here knows what open source is? A few of you? Most people don't. Most people have no clue what open source is. So, open source means that anything someone posts online where I don't have to have a password to view it, so I don't have to hack into any accounts. If I don't need a password, it's just open for anybody to see, that's open source, okay? So all the information you post on social media, YouTube, TikTok, all of that is open source. So as an intelligence analyst, I assist law enforcement in criminal cases. Let's do an example. Say I've got a gang here in Utah. We'll say Sureños. I have Sureño gangs here in Utah, and they're trafficking narcotics, illicit narcotics, whether that be cocaine, marijuana, anything like that. Law enforcement officers come to me and say, okay, we have a criminal suspect. We have an open case. We know this guy is trafficking drugs, and we need you to get information on them. I can use anything openly available on the internet to get information on that suspect. Criminals tend to post a lot of things on Facebook and Instagram. They post holding all the money, wearing all the bling. They even post pictures of their drugs because they're very proud of their stash. I use that, and I obtain this evidence, and I hand it over to law enforcement officers, and they take it from there. They get the appropriate warrants, and they go and find this individual. So that's, in a nutshell, just a little bit of what I do for the Department of Public Safety as an intelligence analyst. The other portion of it is writing products. So there's a difference between information and intelligence. Think of an intelligence analyst as the center of an old school wheel, a wooden wagon wheel, right? The intelligence analyst is at the center, and all the spokes are law enforcement officers sending in information to us, and then we send it back out. What they send to us is just raw information on criminals, raw information on sex trafficking cases. And what we send back out to them is what we have researched, greater information that we have found on that case. They send us a case of a massage parlor that they believe is sex trafficking individuals. We take that information, we process it, we try and find evidence of that. We look at criminal histories, all that information, and then send it back out to these agencies. These agencies range from FBI, DEA, your state and local law enforcement, so city law enforcement officers, highway patrol, all the way to Interpol. I had a drug case where I had to contact Interpol in the Netherlands. So we do a lot of work throughout the United States and worldwide. Now, as far as today's topic, we're discussing commercial sex trafficking and the massage business, okay? I will refer to illicit massage businesses as IMB, illicit massage business, from this point forward. Something I want to warn you about, this is not a delicate topic, and I try to discuss this topic as delicately as possible, but that isn't always going to be as helpful for you to understand what we're discussing today. So please understand that some of the items I'm going to discuss might be triggering for some. You're welcome to step out, take a breather, and come back in. It's a bit of a depressing topic, but I think a very important one. I'm going to talk about kind of the thoughts that we in Utah have of sex trafficking and whether or not we truly believe it's here and how bad is it here. And there will be some examples of victims that I won't read the entire thing, but I will point out the indicators of sex trafficking. So just be cautious about that. So first, I want to talk about the difference between prostitution and sex trafficking, okay? The definition of prostitution is no longer on the screen. All right, other sides. All right, it's the practice or occupation of engaging in sexual activity with someone for payment, okay? And that's prostitution. Now, prostitution, legal in some areas, illegal in most right now, and there is a movement to legalize prostitution. There are males and females, LGBTQ, who engage in prostitution willingly. That is their chosen career field. It's rare at this point, but they do choose that field. Otherwise, you're looking more at the victim side. With sex trafficking, there's some key terms that we think of when we talk about sex trafficking. And it's force, fraud, or coercion, okay? Sex trafficking is when you are forcing a victim to perform sexual services against their will. You have tricked this individual, or fraud, to get them to do sexual services. Coercion, you're threatening to kill their family. You're threatening to harm their friends. You're threatening to expose them on social media for what they've done, okay? Those are three important terms when it comes to sex trafficking. If any one of those terms apply, if you're an adult, that means you are guilty of sex trafficking. Those three terms do not apply when we're talking about children, okay? Underage, you're forcing them to do any type of sexual act, you are immediately doing something illegal. Adults, we still give them the right to choose what they want to do with their own body, but if it's from force, fraud, or coercion, then that's an illegal act, okay? So what is an illicit massage business? The National Trafficking Hotline says it's a fake massage business. Essentially, they're trying to put up a front. They're trying to trick you into thinking that this is a legitimate massage business when really they're just offering sexual services. Now, the interesting thing about these businesses is the victims who work here, they know a little bit about massage therapy. They've learned enough that they know a little bit about it. And there are innocent victims that go to these places to just get a regular massage and then they leave. But as I'll show you, there are websites that actually teach you how to find certain massage businesses that provide sexual services. Interesting story. I have a website where I can check where these massage businesses are, which ones are legit and which ones are not. And I wanted to do a couples massage for me and my husband on our anniversary, and I scheduled way too late. The only place I found open was up in Salt Lake City, and I'm so glad I checked the website that tells me if it's illegitimate or not, because it was on that website. I'm like, we're not going there. There are indicators that will tell you exactly what these places are, what to look for. But on the outside, on their advertisements, it's going to look like a legitimate business. In fact, most of these businesses have real licenses, real massage license. But that's basically to trick law enforcement into thinking that they're legitimate. So here's some statistics. The Polaris Project, they do studies on human trafficking, say that there's a minimum of 9,000 IMBs in operation nationwide. 9,000. And that's an old number. They're growing all the time. It's a $2.5 billion industry. Now, RubMaps is the website that I use. Please don't go there. I know you see a website here, you're like, oh, I wonder what that's about. Don't go there. Because that website is showing reviews and locations of these sites. It's not a pretty website. But there are over 50,000 reviews of these massage parlors on this particular website. And that's reviewing the different girls and different experiences. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to show in Utah on this website, there are 262 massage parlors listed as located in Utah as a whole, compared to California and New York where they have over 2,000. So, yes, our state has fewer of these illicit massage businesses, but they still exist, and there's quite a few. You might have noticed recently in the news, there was a big takedown of a bunch of illicit massage parlors, multiple victims. And then, of course, in the news, there was the shooting at the Asian massage parlor. So they're in the news. We know they're there. But I'll tell you why we still have them, why they still exist. When I ask individuals if they think we have a sex trafficking problem in Utah, I get mixed results. I get not really, I get yes, I get, somewhere in between. There are a lot of misconceptions about sex trafficking that cause us to think that way, that cause us to think this isn't really a big issue here. Victims can be any age, any race, any gender, LGBTQ, male, female. Granted, the majority of victims are going to be female, but they don't have to be someone from a foreign country either. Although we're going to be looking at a lot of these Asian massage parlor businesses, they're not necessarily from a foreign country, okay? It's not someone going out and snatching somebody from Mexico and bringing them over here. A lot of sex workers are the girl next door, the boy next door. There's no real profile of a victim of sex trafficking. So we absolutely do have it here. Well, if we have it here, then why aren't the police handling it? If you can imagine an investigation into sex trafficking, you have to do the research to make sure there is trafficking occurring in that business. You have to obtain warrants. You have to actually catch someone either in the act or using the particular verbiage that I'll talk to you about that indicates there is sexual services being offered at this particular massage parlor. We have very few law enforcement officers, and unfortunately, due to the negative press law enforcement has been getting, deserved or not. Law enforcement have been leaving the force in droves, large numbers, okay? So we don't have enough law enforcement officers to handle the issue. And when one massage parlor is taken down, another one pops up almost as quickly. It's a big issue, and it's something that's very complicated to handle. So we do have law enforcement officers that are working on it. We have officers that are assigned specifically to sex trafficking cases, to child abuse cases, but it's kind of an overwhelming task. So they are handling it. So what are the indicators? I'm sure you guys have seen it. You're driving down the road and you see this tiny little massage parlor in one of those little shopping areas, right? And it's got lotus flowers and like a generic human being that looks very happy they're getting a back massage. Normally, these illicit massage parlors are open every day, okay? Legitimate, they're gonna have certain hours. You know, they'll be open on Saturdays, but they have a certain closing time. You know, they close it at 7 o'clock, or they have regular break hours or lunch hours. Illicit massage parlors are open every day. They have very late hours. We're talking like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. They're inexpensive. A normal hour-long massage is gonna cost you probably $100 or more, but these guys, you can get an hour-long massage for $30. If you see something like that, that's very suspicious, okay? They're typically Asian-owned and operated, and I get this question all the time. Why? Why is it typically Asian-owned and operated? I'll tell you this, criminals, they have a specific type of crime that they like to commit. They're good at it, they get used to it, and they stick with that crime. White supremacists, they love fraud. They love white-collar types of crime, ID theft, things like that. Gangsters, they deal with guns, drugs, and fighting with other gangsters, okay? Criminals tend to stick with what they know. And the Asian massage parlor market, they have everything set that they need. They know exactly what they need to do to avoid law enforcement, although it doesn't always work, obviously. They have advertisements in newspapers in Asia and newspapers here. They have routes to bring their victims from Asia over into the United States. Basically, if you want to get into that business, you already have your routes planned, you already have everything you need. It's kind of like the narcotics trafficking business. You take out one trafficker, there's another one's going to take its place. The tunnels are already there over the border. The weak spots are already known, okay? So in this particular business, it's mostly Asian-owned. They offer table showers, okay? No legitimate massage business is going to offer a table shower. Table shower is where they wash you off after the service, okay? Some of these businesses require you to call before you can get in. Their doors are locked, and you have to call a number, and they will let you in. That's part of how they verify your identity. Of course, some of them, their verification of identity is, are you a cop? No, and that's it. Like, well, I don't think that's going to work, but because cops are allowed to lie if they're, asked if they're a cop. Locked doors at all times. The massage therapist speaks little English. So this is part of the reason that we get these victims. They're brought to a country where they don't know anyone, they don't know the language, so it's easy to manipulate them. It's easy to keep them contained because the person that brought them here or the person that is operating this business is the only one they can speak to. So it's easy to control them. Mainly male clients, and we'll go over the demographics. The owners of these businesses will often transport the victims to and from the business. So we'll talk about some of the recruitment ads, but these individuals will offer housing when they get here and transportation to and from their workplace. That's just another way of controlling them. They have them in a terrible apartment with way too many people in one space. They transport them to work, back to work. They provide food. It's all about control. And then if you are asked to pay for the massage first, and then you'll receive services, that's also another indicator. Any legitimate business, you get the massage first and you pay afterwards. There's some other indicators, but those are kind of the main ones that you're looking for. So here are client demographics. Main gender is male. The majority are between 35 and 64 years of age. The location that they're finding these massage parlors from is from home. Okay, so they're on their computer searching online for these massage parlors. They're mainly Caucasian, although, I mean, there's individuals using these services from every race, but they're mainly Caucasian. And some college, graduate school, and they earn at least 60 to 100K a year. Okay, that's just kind of your base demographic of an individual who goes to these parlors. And how do these individuals do this? Because my thought is, out of all the ways to get rid of massage parlors, I'm a proponent of the stop the buyers aspect of it. We've tried for years to get rid of massage parlors by raiding them, by arresting the owners, and even arresting the victims, unfortunately, or providing the victims with help. We've tried that for a very long time. It's not working, right? It reduces it a little bit, but it's also teaching the criminals what they need to do to avoid us next time. I'm a proponent of keeping the Johns, as we call them, the purchasers of these services, keeping them from buying. Go after the Johns. You go after them, there's no one to provide services to, so what do? So, unfortunately, these individuals, whether they are brand new at using these services or they're experienced, they can go on this particular website and there is training. There is training on what terminology to use, how to approach a massage parlor. Let's see, that first one, remember the girls work for tips. So that $30 you spend on your hour-long massage, that goes to the owner. And the $40 you give them in tips also goes to the owner. So it says they work for tips, but really they work to survive. What are the rules on groping? What are the telltale signs that a place offers HE, which is happy ending? So there are websites that are teaching everyone, anyone out there, how to use these services, okay? So there are new Johns cropping up all the time because they're learning how to do this online, they're learning how to avoid law enforcement and find these places. There's also specific slang. So a law enforcement officer that wants to investigate a sex trafficking massage business, they also have to understand this slang. You can't outright say, I want this. It's, can I have HE, happy ending? I want to request a specific type of girl, and so you have to use that terminology. They do whatever they can to avoid law enforcement detection, and there's training for it online. The individuals who provide this training are called hobbyists, which tells you a lot about them. Their hobby is to victimize individuals working in these sex parlors. A monger is a person who supports undesirable activities, and that can be any undesirable activity, sex trafficking one of them. And I thought this was interesting. Recently I've been asked more and more about what happens if you meet someone who's not a monger, so someone who does not partake in sexual trafficking, or a provider, someone who owns a business, or if you have to walk through a busy place. They tell you to stay cool, walk in and walk out like you own the place. The sign on the door says massage, not puppy kicking store. Because, you know, if you're nice to them, it's okay, right? If you think the staff are going to ask where you're going or what you're looking for, just don't answer them. Be polite, don't give a lot of info. Walk away or walk in and be discreet. So make up your mind. You're either going to get the service or you're not, but be discreet no matter what. So how do these girls fall into this trap? How do they get trapped in these situations? There's a lot of reasons why. Part of it is recruitment. It's that fraud aspect of it. So these are ads posted in Asian magazines or newspapers. And what they're being promised is the dream. They're being promised the dream. It's interesting, the verbiage is a little bit different, but essentially what they're going to post is you get housing, You get lots of money up front. You'll get a visa to the United States. They're giving you everything on a silver platter. We just want you to work in this nail salon. You don't have to have any experience whatsoever. We'll pay you up front, lots of money, we'll give you a place to live. What job offers that to anybody? But people who don't understand, people who are outside the country, that's the American dream. We're going to come here, we don't really need experience, they'll train us, we're going to get paid lots of money and have a nice place to live. We're going to get a nice car, or transportation to and from, which makes us feel very fancy. It's playing on either innocence, or they're just naive, or they're so desperate to leave a situation that they're willing to believe something like this. So key phrases from these recruitments, the recruitment ads that I found: $600 per day or $100 per hour, starting wages. You work for 2 hours and you get $120, and that's plus tip. It's a cash job. Interesting here, any women born after 1994 are okay, so they're looking for a specific age. Anybody can do it, premium apartment provided. We provide safe rides, don't need to worry about housing. The American dream. And we talked about this already, the extremely high pay, paid in cash. They even state English speaking not required, or minimal, because they don't want you to be able to communicate with people. If you can communicate, then you can tell them what's happening to them. Cell phone applications are used for sex trafficking advertisements. We used to have Backpage. That was the biggest sex trafficking advertisement out there. It is now gone, but they have moved to all sorts of apps. You will see it on Snapchat, on Facebook, on Instagram. They're on every single social media platform out there. And they are either being completely blatant with it, or they're trying to hide what they're doing. More and more often, they're just being blatant with it, because it's getting harder and harder to find these individuals because they're using the internet, and it's hard to track them down. But it is all over social media. What are the physical indicators of someone who is being sexually trafficked? We looked at the massage parlor indicators, but what about the women on the inside? Because mainly the victims of these massage parlors are women. Branding or tattooing. If you are owned by someone, they will brand you as theirs. Okay, it's like putting a tag on a shirt. Okay, you're not a human being, you are an object, and they need to write their name on you. Okay, so you'll see in these pictures, they do tattoos. Barcodes is one of them. That girl in the top right corner, she has Ricky on the inside of her lip. That's the name of her pimp. The other one is Pay Me, F-U, Pay Me. Bottom left, you'll see the initials of the pimp and a crown. There are certain tattoos that are indicative of an individual being trafficked. You'll see crowns, diamond, dollar signs, money bags, and then the name of a man. And I don't know many women who want to be tattooed on their inner lip or have F-U, Pay Me across their neck, okay? Usually they try and do the tattoos in a visible place like that. And I don't know, I just think there's very few women who would do that voluntarily. There are signs of abuse, bruises, scratches, whatnot, because this is the force part of sex trafficking. Signs of drug and alcohol abuse. Often these victims are forced to take drugs even if they never have before to get them addicted to it. And then they have to rely on their pimp to get these drugs. Poor living conditions. The women working in these parlors, they're not going to get that premium apartment. They're going to be put in an apartment with very little furniture, too many people to one apartment. And food is often used as a way of controlling. So they want them to stay skinny and small, according to society's view of what's beautiful. So they withhold food for certain amounts of time, or they just dole out little bits of food in order to control them and keep them the size that they want. Limited or lack of freedom, like I said, that control, driving back and forth. And if they don't have control of their documents, that's a big thing about these illicit massage businesses. Anyone who comes to the United States should be in control of their documents, their birth certificate, their visa, their passport, whatever. But owners will take away those documents and use fear of calling ICE to kick that individual out of the United States. So they withhold that paperwork. They can't go anywhere, they can't go home, and if they're caught without it, they're scared of law enforcement detaining them and taking them away. And then they have little or no money for their own personal needs, only what the owner gives them. So I apologize for the language in this, but I pulled 3 ads off of the RubMaps website. And I want to go through each one and show you what, I guess show you how to tell from these ads that there are victims here. So the first one, it was, if you notice at the bottom, I kind of want you to notice like the cost of this. It was a $90 door fee, so he had to pay before he got in the door. That's one indicator. And then he gave a $40 tip after services were done. So that one tells me that the parlor he went to, other than all the other things he mentions, is an illicit massage business because he had to pay that $90 up front. The second one, English wasn't the best. You can see that second line down. English wasn't the best, so she couldn't really speak English. That's another indicator. She pulled back as I was reaching for her leg. She didn't want him to touch her. Then he said there wasn't any eye contact at all. And when his happy ending was finished, she had a look of relief on her face. He said he left happy, but it wasn't the most enjoyable experience because she wouldn't let him touch her and she wouldn't make eye contact. She just kept looking away. And she was relieved when she was done. The third one, this is actually a law enforcement officer that's trying to determine if there is a victim here. So he declines all the services, but he's talking to her. He talks to her about her life and why she's here. She says she does massages 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And she kept leaving the room. The reason this victim kept leaving the room is because the owner was on the outside giving her instruction. She must have been a new individual. So she had to go outside to ask what to do and then come back in. And every time she came back in, there was something new that she would do. She'd comment on his body, how much she liked it, because she was told to comment on his body. Finally, when this experience was done, he got up and said, you know what, I'm done, because he could tell that she was a victim. It says when she returned, she came over and started to she talked about my body, did not respond to her making those comments, and she looked at me, grabbed my hands and told me the massage was done and gave me a hug and told me thanks for being so polite to her, wrapped her arms around me again, giving me another tight hug. So you can imagine the type of people that are going to these places. That someone who was kind to her and did not grope her and did not want those services, she was thankful enough to give a hug and say thank you. It's depressing, I know. This is it's a depressing topic, but it gives you a glimpse into what they're experiencing in these massage parlors and why, again, I'm a proponent of going after the Johns. You take away the payment for these services, and what else are you going to do? And I just want to go after them because of what they do and who they are. So behavioral indicators. They often call their pimp their boyfriend or daddy. In the case of massage parlors, it's employer, boss. They don't speak for themselves. They're always deferring to the owner of the business. You'll talk to them and they defer. Even if you have like a Chinese translator, they will defer. They show loyalty towards a trafficker. There is a point where, you've probably heard the term before, the Stockholm Syndrome, where they think that they have to depend on their trafficker, where they gain this kind of odd respect for their trafficker. So they will defend them. until you talk to them enough to break down their walls. They fear law enforcement, and that either comes from the fear of being deported, or maybe they come from a country where law enforcement is corrupt and is just as bad as any criminal. They don't make eye contact, they're paranoid, inconsistent stories, memory gaps. There's a whole section of the way a victim's mind works when they have been beaten down and starved, and their thinking has changed. That's a whole other discussion, but they will have memory gaps and be inconsistent, and we've had to train law enforcement to understand that. Because often criminals are inconsistent and their story changes and they have memory gaps. And over time, we've had to learn that a victim will exhibit those same symptoms, but for different reasons. So with evading law enforcement, like I said, IMBs are usually licensed as a legitimate business. Or they try and say that they do a different type of massage, like Reiki, okay? That one where you're supposed to be able to put your hands over someone and there's an energy that transfers to their body. I think that should just be illegal. That's just ridiculous sounding. I don't feel anything when people do that. A lady told me once when I was getting a massage, legitimate massage, that I had great energy. I'm like, I'm probably just really warm and you're feeling some heat or something. They say that. They say that they're not touching you. And if they're not touching you, you don't have to have a massage license. It's the manipulation of the muscle that requires that license. So they're like, oh no, we don't do that. We just hover our hands and that's it, okay? If they are, in fact, certified as a legitimate massage business, again, they're using the terminology. They're trying to hide what they're doing. And innocent individuals will go in there and they'll get a massage and they'll leave a review saying, oh yeah, it was okay, or no, it wasn't great, or yeah, she was really great. And it's all kind of this shield that they can hide behind. And it's usually a network of businesses. The first human trafficking case I worked on as an analyst was down in St. George, and a gentleman, white Caucasian man, was actually the owner of at least 6 massage businesses, illicit businesses. He was a pillar of the community. Everybody knew him. He was a religious man. He had quite a bit of money that he gave out to all kinds of charities and things like that, but he also owned about 6 massage businesses. And if you don't know that these businesses are linked, you can take down 1 or 2, but the others are still fully operational. So it's not that idea of cutting off the head of the hydra. Several more are going to grow back in its place. And so we caught him and shut down some of his businesses and helped the victims, but then more heads began to grow somewhere else. And that's part of the difficulty with law enforcement, and that's how they evade. They easily can start new businesses anywhere else. So, now what? Now that you know all that information, what on earth do you do with it? I taught a human trafficking class at UVU once, and the thing I noticed most is how much the students noticed after they took the class. They're like, wait a second. They would raise their hand all the time. Last week, last month, a couple of months ago, I saw this advertisement, and it was saying all this pay and nice stuff. Last week, I saw this business that looked, I don't know, kind of crummy, and it had all those signs. The now what is, now that you know what you're looking for, what do you do with it? And the easiest answer is, if you think you're seeing the signs, you call law enforcement. Likely they already know, and they're trying to do something about it. As far as victims go, very difficult to work with, and here's why. Some of the victims that are coming over from Asia to here, and I actually had an officer tell me this. He was telling this victim, he said, well, you don't have to work in this type of life. You don't have to do this. We can give you a better life. And she looked at him and said, this is a better life. So you can imagine where she came from. They're poor. They need to send money back to their families, which a lot of them, that's why they're coming over here to get these jobs. They want to come to America for a better life, and they also have family at home that they're trying to send money back to. So in working with victims, it's a matter of consistent offers of help. You don't talk bad about the business that they're in. You don't talk bad about the owner of the business or bad about the pimp, because they will automatically defend them. It's simply being a friend and saying, you know what, if you need help, I'm here for you. I had another officer, there were two individuals that he took this patient approach with. And it took him 3 years to get them to leave the life of prostitution that they were in and to change. 3 years. Now, I can't guarantee that it's going to take 3 years less or more than that. But this is a major issue within the state of Utah. Not as big of an issue everywhere else, but now that you have the knowledge, you can spot these places and contact law enforcement. Or, better yet, you can share your knowledge and say, hey, this is what I learned, and this is what I think is going on. And remember that although I've focused on these illicit massage businesses where you have mainly Asian women working there, that any victim of sex trafficking can be someone next door, okay? They recruit as young as 10, and they will find any weakness. We put our entire lives on social media, and that's what they do. They go on social media and they find a weakness, and they exploit it. So you'll have a girl who no boys like, and nobody wants to take her to the dances, but suddenly she meets someone online that just thinks she's amazing, provides her with gifts and money, and makes her feel special. And this could be, someone in junior high, high school. And they'll work on this individual for a year or more. It's a long game. And try to get their trust. And after they've gained their trust, I need you to do this for me so that we can live together and be happy. I need you to help us earn money by doing these things so that we can have a nice house and nice cars. And they slowly work them in that way. It's not somebody who grabs you off the street and says, hey, you're going to be a prostitute for me. No. They're very, very intelligent, and they know what they're doing. So I'm very thankful that you guys let me come out and talk about this extremely depressing topic. So I'm going to ask you if you have any questions, and somebody better have at least one question, even if it's an awkward question. And I promise I'll tell you a joke before you leave, so you're not depressed when you walk out of here. But are there any questions regarding the signs of sex trafficking or how to approach a victim, anything like that? Yes?
Can you wait for her to bring
Oh, there's a microphone, yeah.
Like, have you helped with, like, Operation Underground Railroad?
I get that question every time. I've actually never met anybody from Operation Underground Railroad. So because I work for law enforcement, we can't work with any civilian organizations. We're pursuing criminal charges, and they have their complete separate operation. But I think we should. But nobody's ever really tried to do it. So. Oh, Operation Underground Railroad. It is a nonprofit organization that rescues children from different countries from being trafficked, sexual trafficking mainly, but also labor trafficking. And they do amazing work, absolutely amazing work. I've heard a lot of stories of what they've been able to do. They hire a lot of ex-military to go into these countries and rescue children. So yeah, I think we should. What other questions do you have?
So you said that some people might choose to go back into it because that's basically all they know here.
Mm-hmm.
Would they still technically be considered a victim in law enforcement's eyes because they chose it after they already had the opportunity to leave? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And yes, they would be. Because you are correct, that's kind of all they know. If they're brought here to the country, that's all they know how to do. That's all they think they're capable of doing. But at that point, if they go back to their pimp is still using all the force, fraud, and coercion to get them to remain with them. There's that kind of competitiveness. You don't want your girl to go to another pimp. So yes, all that is still there, and they would be considered a victim. There are individuals who do choose to do prostitution of their own free will. They don't have a pimp. They have chosen this as a career, something to do with their body and how they use their agency, extremely rare, but there is a growing movement to allow women to choose to be prostitutes if they want to. And I guess rather than prostitute, it would be sex worker is the term for their career that they would choose. So it's interesting.
Is there support for the victims after they're rescued? Like refuge?
There is, yes. So you know how I explained that old-timey wheel where the center was the analyst and you had all the law enforcement agencies? It's the same concept for a victim's advocate. So anytime there's a crime occurs, a victim's advocate is sent out to help the victim. So the victim advocate is the center of that wheel, and all those spokes are the resources: food, shelter, clothing, counseling, you know, any resource that you can think of, we offer. Interesting thing is a lot of the victims do not accept services. And part of that might be fear of law enforcement, fear of change, but we offer them everything to get them back on their feet and doing something different with their lives, and they don't accept it very often, but we do give them everything possible.
So how would we, you know, inform like law enforcement? Would we like say like, hey, there's an IMB here, or you know, like call 911?
I would call the non-emergency line for the local agency and just say, I'm concerned that there is sex trafficking going on at this location. I've noticed these things happening, you know, only males going in and out, very late at night, all the indicators. But I would do it on the non-emergency line and just make a report that way. Any other questions?
So how do we, as citizens, do our research to help prevent going to an IMB business inside and out of the States?
Prevent yourselves or prevent others from going?
Both.
Both? Before going and, like, for personally, before going and getting massages, just doing research on the business. Looking for those indicators: how much does it cost? What are their hours? What are the requirements? The individual that you contact to make an appointment, do they speak very little English? Some businesses, legitimate businesses, will have people with accents or their English isn't the best, but it's combining those indicators together. It's not just one individually saying, okay, that's got to be that because they're open very late. It's a combination. And preventing others is, again, that sharing of that knowledge of what to look for. Honestly, if someone is innocently looking to go and get a massage, that's what they're going to get when they go. It's those that understand what's going on behind closed doors. They know the language that are going to request those services, and that's what makes it so important to report these businesses so that law enforcement can do a proper investigation to find out, yes, it is, or no, it isn't. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I'm curious right here. This is a little off topic maybe, but like in the movie Taken, where these girls fly to Europe and get targeted and snatched away, how real is that scenario or frequent?
Not real in the slightest at all. Women in, like you'll get women in foreign countries like Mexico that will be kidnapped and forced into sex trafficking, but the idea of the girl, you know, chained to the floor, the girl who isn't allowed to go outside and things like that, it's completely fake. The psychology of a victim is they believe that what they're doing is okay. They believe that the pimp loves them. They could go outside and go to the grocery store and ask no one for help because they don't think they need it, because that's their life and that's what they do. So the idea of this pleading victim for help, yes, that happens, but it's extremely rare. With children, you're going to get the trapped and the victimized. But a pimp or an owner of these businesses will change the way they think over time. That's Stockholm Syndrome.
Would you please join me in thanking Mary for her presentation? Thank you. If some of you If some of you would like to come up and meet Mary and ask her any questions, any remaining questions that you have, we have a few minutes for that. But thank you so much. See you next week.